Jack Patterson with WRBL out of Columbus. You mentioned in your post-game press conference after the regionals that you were going to let the team know what they were going up against this Coastal team. What did those conversations? How did those conversations go? And how do you get a team prepared for the hottest team in college baseball?
Yeah, they're a handful. The most wins, and I guess the 21 games in a row. It's a real ball club. So hopefully those 10 weeks of SEC prepared us. I don't want us to change. I mean, we have an identity. This is who we are. I think the biggest mistake, number one, you could make is try to be somebody else or tailor your game too much. It's important to know your opponent, but at the same time, we can't go try to grab more this weekend. I would take the consistency with which we played last week and do that again. That's what we're trying to reach. We're trying to reach our consistent standard and be a consistent baseball team, regardless of who's on the other side. Even though we have the hottest team in college baseball, we're playing. And I've been listening to a lot of conversations. They're ongoing. They're going right now. You get off the field and you go do your last prep work for your opponent. That's happening as we speak. But what I've got from Coastal is just the freebie championship type team. And when I say that, I look at a team with 165 hit by pitches, over 106 stolen bases, and a ton of walks, like 436 maybe to be close, of freebies. Then that's an offensive strategy. That's what Gary Gilmore had done forever. Now Kevin Schnall, who was an assistant for 20 years, in his first year as a head coach, that's what they had bred to do in the Big South and now in the Sun Belt, which is a great baseball conference, and they played that. And I guess we were seeing Fluky the first night as their starter, and you look at him and the number 2 starter, 2 right-handed starters that basically are at about 180 innings and 18 walks in between those 2 starters. So you just keep looking around at every aspect, and it is not necessarily like an SEC team where you're trying to get a couple guys on them and get the 3-run homer. There's no doubt that they absolutely possess that. They have a double-digit home run guy, but it's the death by 1,000 paper cuts, as I keep hearing is the term that people use today, but it's a freebie war. They are celebrating every time they get a freebie and get on base and do things, and we can be competitive with that. And it matches, hopefully, in our preparation. You know, we probably need to get ahead in the game. That slows some offensive strategy. Our ability to throw that percentage of strikes like we waived all year for our pitching staff, buddy, it'll never be needed more than in a series like this to get ahead and stay ahead and use your head through counts and sequences and things of that nature. So, yeah, they do some incredible things. And that freebie war, if you continue to win that day in and day out, that's how you win 21 in a row. That's how you are so successful. And they're great at home. So I have all the respect. Last week we talked about respect. The game, your opponent, you must, or you'll get, this will be it, right? We have a large number, a very surprising large number of teams in our league that's not advancing and still playing. You must respect the game. You must respect your opponent. We're going to have to apply force. We'll have to be ready to play again. We can't just roll anything out here and expect any success. And then we have to execute. Those were our 3 things last week. I still think they're extremely applicable this week.
Yes, Butch touched on it a little bit, that pitching staff and what's attributed to their success. But I guess whether it's looking at Fluky or that staff as a whole, I mean, you know, what are the things that have just allowed them to be like as dominant team-wide as they really have been?
Yeah, that consistency. Back to the freebie thing. And when I say freebie thing, you have to work to do that. You have to a group of guys that's committed. I've been talking about a pack mentality with our offense, where it's not just 1 or 2 guys, but it's a collection, and it's a full depth. It's 1 through 9. When you got somebody like Fralick hitting an 8-hole for us, that allows you to create length in your lineup. These guys, back to Fluky, he is a little bit of an outlier. He's going to present and then do vertical break, which means ride on the baseball through the strike zone of about 26 inches, and we probably face in the Southeastern Conference of 22, 23. So he's an outlier coming in here in a fastball that he possesses analytically tomorrow that we haven't seen, and we don't say that very much. The only way we can duplicate that, since we haven't seen it in our conference, is in the batting cage here, right behind us with the machine. We haven't been able to duplicate that. So control the strike zone is another piece of your answer there. So we're going to have to get our barrel set And if it's at 23 inches where you envision that a ball would be on those 23 inches like they usually normally see, they're gonna have to be maybe a quarter a ball or a half a ball above that to get on top of the 26 inches and that 3 or 4 different inches of induced vertical break. So I never answer questions this way. I'm usually much more traditional and old school, but that's a factor for him. And it's not sitting there swinging, getting on top. We have to push it down to get it in the zone. So I think controlling the strike zone and to that ride, what is that going to do to us optically? That's the first thing I'm looking for. So he possesses something. But right back to the freebie, when these guys are throwing north of 80 innings and they're under 10 walks, man, that's making Ike Irish have to perform. That's making the pieces in our lineup have to work and have at bats, because they're on this good run because they haven't gifted or created offense. So we got to be ready to play to make our own and get our barrel to the right spot once we figure out what it looks like, what he's doing. And I hope either virtually or from preparation. Ron Bliss taught me this. This does not need to be our first at bat tomorrow at 8 p.m. This needs to be our 15th, 20th at bat against this guy. We've been preparing for him this week, and let's show up and see how we execute. But he has something there that is uncanny, is an outlier, and has served him well. And so we're trying to get prepared for that, and one day at a time. So we'll try to get on him, figure him out, try to be competitive against him, and then whoever they bring in, they got the finishers. Just like we talked about Stetson. What if we were not up 5-3 in the 6th inning the other night against Stetson and they dropped Van Dyke, one of the best closers in the country? What if we're down 5-3 instead of up 5-3? What's the outcome of a 1-0 winners bracket game? That's how this is this time of year. How critical this is. We're in the 4th inning with NC State in the final game at 0-0 still. What's going to create the momentum and the breakthrough on each of these games? So we're resetting, and what both teams have done doesn't matter. All that's going to matter is what we do out here in these 3 games.
Jason? Butch, just talk a little bit about your pitching plans for the opener.
Dutton.
What'd you say? Obviously he's your guy, but talk about kind of what you saw from him last week and him bouncing back now.
I thought he looked fresher. I thought he got back to being able to sequence and do some things that he did earlier. I don't think that he had thrown north of 70 innings his first 3 years of college. I'm sure he did in high school and all of that, but I think once he got to that stage and had done incredible work for us, it was almost a consistent 5 or 6 innings every time he rolled out. That I thought for a couple of starts he was not as fresh, and I think it affected his command. And I thought he looked freshened up and looked like himself last week. And so we're hoping that window that was created for him not having to throw from Ole Miss and not in the SEC tournament was enough to allow him to carry. Hope this is not his last start, but hopefully we feel like that break freshened him up enough and looked good last week that could carry him through this start.
Johnny in the back.
Hey Butch, from a game planning and a strategic standpoint, how different is it preparing for a regional to a super regional, and rather it be taxing your bullpen a certain amount or different lineups, or just how different is that from a strategic standpoint?
Yeah, I think a coach has to prepare to play 5 games in a regional, and we have to play under a 27-man roster. Southeastern Conference, this regular season, we played under the guise of a 30-man roster. And I think if you have to prepare to throw and pitch and play 5 games, that required more pitching. So that 27-man roster probably had 1 or 2 more pitchers on it, players that could be activated. I do think in the 3-game series, like we're way more used to playing, because we played 14 of those, basically in our regular season. I think we could probably add another position player or 2. We're not as healthy positionally right now, so we're challenged. And most teams, if you're still playing, you got a challenge or 2 from a health, and you get play as many games as we have at this point. So I think that's the biggest thing for us. As long as you're keeping it to a single game silo and you're trying to win that ball game, it doesn't matter if you're playing 1 or 2, which is all that's guaranteed here, or if you're playing 3 or 5. It's a single game. To me, when you ask the question, I think about who's active, who's not, what's required. And I wish we would keep marching. Nobody cares what I think, but I wish we would march to a 3-game series throughout. The regional's a really unique thing that's thrown in there. I wish we could figure out, in this world where everything's changing right now, if we could get to those formats of just 3-game series and the home team plays every game and add another week or cut out a week or whatever is the answer. I would love to see that, because this is what both teams are prepared for. We played 10 conference SEC weekends and won 7 of them, and we always call those 10 weeks. We've already played 10 super regionals. This is just our 11th, because our problem would be different if we start acting differently and doing things, and we have some experience with this, you know. So this is our 4th one of these, and one of those finished in game 3 in extra innings and being the last team not to qualify, figuring it out a couple of times. This is hard for a coach and a young player to go, but this is about execution and getting right back to trying to win another 3-game series, and we've been rehearsing that all year. The regional format is what you don't rehearse all year. And as I watch these teams trying to get through game 5, the arms, the heaviness of starting a game, and then 3 days later, they've already thrown 100 pitches and they're back out there. That's not the team's best version of themselves. And so if I could create any dialogue, or if you want to get your little fingers typing and talk about some of that, I think it'd be appropriate to talk about maybe that format. But this 3-game series is what we're all have been doing all year long.
Got 2 more, Philip and then Brian.
Butch, could you just talk about Gabe and what he has meant to these hitters, the young ones and the old ones, and what difference his major league experience makes to these guys?
Yeah, Gabe had great experience both here at Auburn, so there's a love of Auburn, and I always appreciate that. Just like I would want anybody that played at any school or was a part of somewhere, that good kind of pride, not the bad kind, the good kind of pride where you're from. So he's always toting that. He's an example for these guys, because we're still trying to build men. I know you're asking a hitting question, but he is a great example of what it is to be a husband and a father. Having him on staff, that's like just automatic what I'm getting for our players, to see what it's supposed to look like. Hopefully the kind of husband and father they're going to be. There's a quiet confidence with Gabe, where he is just absolutely has a feel for the swing and approach, and Steve Renfro, Hal Baird, all the way through walking through professional baseball and the ups and downs of maybe not being an everyday starter in the big leagues, and what's life's like in that world, and the challenges that maybe come with that, but also played in a World Series as a big leaguer. Every time somebody does something really special, one of these hitters are dating back to a record that probably Gabe had when he played here a while back. But great consistency, a great example, loves the place, and I think what he does is he has the pillars of tried and true of what allows you to, how to swing a bat, what to do. And then if Gabe was sitting here answering the question too about our hitting stuff, I think he would give Carl Nunemaker a ton of credit to the partnership and how we're all invested in trying to help one another. But I think it's a good, steady presence. And of course, you and I spoke last week about him coming back in that dugout this year. All we were trying to do, nothing magical happened, except he got closer, more consistent. He could communicate in real time with our players more often, because he's that valuable. I'm trying to push him closer to our players instead of further away.
Brian.
Butch, how did Eric Guevara look out there today? And then also Cade Ballou, is he making progress as far as his health and maybe timing out his swing a little bit better?
Yeah, I'll start with Cade. I think we just have to manage it. If he can play a game, I think he can. That's what you've seen. Could he play the next day? Last week he could not. He's done everything this week. I would say this week has not been as taxing as last week for a lot of different reasons. But I would think Cade can play him with 2 right-handed starters. You'd think he would. I just don't know if he could duplicate it. So I know he's on there. Eric is, we'll know more in weeks. But could he be Kirk Gibson, you know? He took batting practice today. He ran with Anthony, our trainer, and did some things. Would he give me at bat or something? Could he play defense? I would think the defense would be, he would have to keep getting better the next 2 days. Would I put him on there? the 27 man for him to have an at bat? Probably, because of what I think of him. So there's no doubt that we have some challenges there. But both of those guys were probably on there because of the 2 or 3 questions ago, that 3-game series probably would allow us to be able to do that. And I'd probably want an extra position player with a couple of guys not at 100%. But same thing, no excuses from us. It's just, it is what it is. And I'm sure Coastal, if they're standing here doing a press conference with you in a little bit, that he's probably got somebody on his roster that's not at 100% either. So Cade can play. Is he at 100%? He will not be the rest of the year. Eric's way below that mark, but can he still help us in a critical moment or situation? I think I might trust him to do that offensively.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep.